2024 regular meeting. Take a roll call vote. Jessica, can you acknowledge you're here?
I'm here.
All right, Roger?
Yeah.
Becky?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Tanya? All right, great. Let's stand up and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Sorry, Jessica, I gotta remember to wait for your delay.
No, you're fine. I can't see anybody though, like last time I could.
Oh.
I don't know if Zach has camera.
Zach's gonna try to fix that.
Okay.
I didn't realize it didn't get turned on.
Now I can see you.
Don't touch that. Pat's behind you, so. Okay, I will entertain a motion. Oh, does anyone have any questions or things with respect to the consent agenda? I had a question. You've been giving us those lovely graphs and things of kind of just through the year for visits and circulation. Is there can we do that same thing with like the different branch events with historical data? Like I don't know, something to give us a gauge of what's this in comparison to how it's been.
So like maybe. So a visualization maybe of these parts that you had.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the same.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
I would like that. Anybody else? Okay, we did receive a revised payables for June, so I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as we received at the meeting this evening. I guess that would be the best way to correspond that in there.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the minutes and the financial reports as presented.
I'll second that. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Great. Okay, we're going to move on to public comment. Ms. Connie Poisel.
Hello, I am Connie Poisel. At the May meeting, a board member announced melodramatically that she had learned and discovered my membership and my husband's membership in the Cass County Historical Society, CCHS, as well as his position on the CCHS board. Our membership in his position on the CCHS board was never hidden by us. The roster of CCHS board members is public information and available to the public. There are currently 2 lawsuits involving the library board and the CCHS board. The CCHS board filed their lawsuit on January 31st, 2024, and this board member just now discovered the names of the CCHS board members, waited in informed library board member. I only speak for myself and not for the CCHS or any organization. One would be hard pressed to describe my husband as a spokesperson for the CCHS board since he has never spoken at these meetings. Rather than attempting to improve their service on the board, this member chose to use her position on a public board to attack and discredit private citizens. This board member alleged that I have lied and put forth a false narrative. Wasn't the catalyst for 2 lawsuits a member making the decision to not pay the full rent and by clouding this building's ownership by filing documents with the court? Didn't these lawsuits create higher legal bills than ever in the history of the board, a situation that was noted by a board member at a meeting? A member didn't make derogatory comments about the LGBTQ community, which was drilled down on by another member on the May 7th, 2024 social media podcast, Awaken with Alex, when this library board member responded with a laugh and a yes to the host, referring to the LGBTQ mafia. Didn't a board member request that a rental lease agreement for the Garden City branch, which would typically not be a closed session item, be moved to closed session without a legal opinion from the board's attorney, but rather relied on their own profession, which is not in the legal field, to make this determination? While this board did vote unanimously to take bids to repair the stair tread, it is not their responsibility to do so. This is the role of the Cass County Information Center, CCIC. The library board's representative to the CCIC meeting did not make a formal request for this repair during the public portion of that meeting, which was witnessed by myself and people in this audience tonight. When the new appointee's mother serves on the CCHS board with my husband, will this library board member express the same concerns towards her, or was this directed solely toward my husband and myself because I've held 3 board members accountable for their harmful actions towards the library?
Mr. Paul Murphy?
My name's Tom Marshall, and I live in Cass County and use the library. I'm a retired attorney and spent most of my career representing labor unions. On May 29th, you held a work session on revisions to library policies. During the discussion, you talked about the law which governs the operation of a public library. At least a couple of members of the board voiced their opinions that the board need not concern itself with decisions by courts of law. What was stunning about the discussion was the apparent disregard some of the board members seemed to express about decisions by courts and whether those decisions need to be considered in the governance of the library. Apparently, old habits die hard. I found myself champing at the bit to speak up about this obvious flaw in the board's legal analysis. Certainly, the board is familiar with the notion of controlling case law. In 1896, the Supreme Court issued its decision in Plessy versus Ferguson, ruling that racial segregation in public schools was permitted under the 14th Amendment, establishing the legal doctrine of separate but equal. This decision was considered to be the law of the land for the next 60 years or so. In 1954, the Supreme Court in Brown versus Topeka Board of Education, by a 9-0 vote, reversed the law of the land and ruled that separate but equal clearly violated that same 14th Amendment. The amendment had not been changed in the interim. Another example is the court's decision in Roe versus Wade, the law of the land for 50 or so years, until it was set aside in Dobbs versus Jackson, handed down 2 years ago. These court decisions carry the force of law, and virtually everyone understands that to be true. So stunning to hear the board debating the question of whether case law regarding a public library should be given weight or consideration in making policy decisions for this library. From the discussion, it appeared that an attorney had given advice to the board based, at least in part, upon relevant case law. Back when I was still in practice, I occasionally dealt with clients that did not want to listen to legal advice. My best response was, folks, I've got a wife and 4 daughters. I'm used to giving advice that no one pays a speck of attention to. The other used slightly less often was, does the name Custer mean anything to you all? One board member said that the advice of the attorney who was paid for his advice should be considered. Apparently, that attorney concluded that if the board took the action that was being requested, the board would be sued and would, in his opinion, likely lose. The proposed solution to unwelcome legal advice seemed to be, well, let's get another lawyer. Please understand that relevant case law is a proper consideration when developing policies to govern the library and its board. Please also understand that Custer and the men under his command were wiped out of the battle of the Little Bighorn. Thank you.
Anthony?
Hello, my name is Amber Payne, and I'm a Cass County resident and library patron. I wanted to express my gratitude to Cass County Libraries and their efforts to be inclusive to our entire community. I'm speaking today in response to a post on Facebook by CCPL highlighting plus prevalent LGBTQ inclusive titles and resources. Some of the most notorious out-of-touch local politicians didn't respond well to that post shared by CCPL. But as a taxpayer and library patron, I would like to share that CCPL's commitment to inclusivity and making sure every citizen feels welcome at our libraries is impressive and appreciated. A library's job, and by extension a board's job, is not to cave to the discomforts of a few. In fact, I'd argue that discomfort leads to learning new things and therefore should be preserved in our libraries. A good library holds within it something to offend everyone, as it's said. I'd encourage every member of this board to pick up a book that makes them uncomfortable. You might just learn a little extra compassion for your neighbors. Happy Pride Month to those who celebrate.
Ms. Mindy McVeigh.
Hello, I'm Mindy McVeigh. I am a Cass County member that has been here her whole life, and I've grown up in this library for all periods. I was raised from marching. It has come to my attention that there's been an argument about an anatomical book about the what changes will happen in children as they come into their puberty stages, and a book that is trying to be taken out of the library due to anatomical drawings that are in it. I would plead with the library that they keep these things because growing up in a small conservative town, we did not have great education. And so there are lots of things that even in people in my generation still do not know about their bodies. It is only in places like libraries where kids can come for real, factual information that help them to grow who they're supposed to be and to be more inclusive to everybody. It is not okay to remove things like this. It is very important that kids have this outlet and this ability to learn about themselves. Otherwise, they clearly will not get it from home. And they're getting lots of pushback by the schools. And so it is the library's job to make sure that that information is safe. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the. All right, we are moving on to unfinished business. There's action items, the collection management policy revisions that we worked on in those 2 work sessions. Action this evening is to approve. So I could entertain a motion to approve the collection management policy as we wrote it and was presented to us, and then if there's anything for discussion before that, we can have more discussion if nobody has anything.
I would have some discussion. Okay.
Let's go ahead and have the motion to approve, and then we'll come back to have the discussion.
I make a motion to approve a collection management policy.
Okay, now we can discuss. Roger.
Yes, there's one item here that we debated and strongly, and what we ended up with was all materials will be shelved and determined by experienced library staff in their proper order on open shelves, freely and easily accessible to the public. I argued that we needed to put in that we will follow the laws of the land on all these things. This statement basically is what the law of the land is. And so even though it doesn't specifically say we're following the laws, which I would have preferred, the statement basically says that we will shelve things the way they're supposed to be shelved. We will use the expertise of our staff, many of which have degrees in library science and know how to shelve things and know how to put things so that people can find them. The two of our speakers tonight, or previous speakers tonight, took a lot of my notes and covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. But because we spent so much time, I lost so much sleep. I know Becky did too. I know some of you did. Definitely, maybe some of the others were on the board at the time when we were really in heat. And I guess you were too. This was really hot. That was a mental stress for all of us that were on the board, because we really wanted to do the right thing. And we had disagreements about what the right thing was to do. But we worked our way through it, and I want to tell people that after we sort of settled down, the board was able to get together and discuss things and we were able to get together and make decisions, and we were able to get together and move forward. And we're doing some things that aren't quite public yet, but they're going to be public here shortly. And we are making progress now that we got past this discussion. And with this statement that all things will be shelved in the proper order and proper shelves, freely accessible to the public, that I hope is going to end this discussion. I really hope it's going to end the discussion. This is our policy. This is what's going to happen. And I hope that's true. But I would like to explain a little bit about why that's important. Because hiding things is as good as destroying things. You can hide something and you say, well, it still exists. We're not Nazis. We don't burn it. We don't destroy it. It still exists. It's in the library someplace. It's in there someplace. But that doesn't mean it exists for the person who wants to find that particular piece of information. Some of you will remember when you were pre-teens, teenage people, and some of you, I imagine, were bold enough to do what you wanted to do, or talking to go demand to find where the things were at. But I imagine a lot of you were very shy people, and the argument was that, well, if we hide the thing, the librarians will know where we hid it at. So if they really want it, they can go up and ask the librarian. The librarian will go find it for them. If you're really shy, you're a preteen, a teenager, are you going to go up to some librarian that you may have seen before, but you really don't know, and a stranger, and saying, I want to know everything there is to know about sex, and I want you to find it for me? That it is basically it is censorship. It's censorship because you can't get it. There was one time during the discussion over the last few years where it was actually proposed that we buy a wooden box. And we put a lock on the box, and we take all the books in the biology department of the youth area, the junior area, and we put them into a box, and we lock up the box. And if you wanted something out of that box, you go get the key from the librarian, and they'd unlock the box. That was actually a proposal that we had, which reminds me, I don't know how many of you are into physics and read anything about physics, but there's something called Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat, it's a complicated theory. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. The guy puts a cat in a box, and he shuts the box, and he says, is the cat alive or is the cat dead? Well, some people say the cat's alive, some people say the cat's dead. And Schrodinger says, well, the cat is both alive and dead at the same time. So if we go take and hide a book, does that book exist? If you put the book where it doesn't belong, it doesn't exist to the person who's looking for it. It may exist to you. It may exist to librarians who know where it's at, but it doesn't exist to you. And that's why this is censorship. And this is why it is against the law. The rulings and so forth make it against the law to hide books. I mean, in fact, I guess we could take every book in the library and put it in a great big pile right in the middle of the library. Somebody wants a book, say, it's in that pile right over there. It's in that pile. We didn't destroy it. We didn't burn it. It's in that pile. But they can't find it. I mean, they're going to go through the whole books of all the library without any kind of order and find it. And that's what was being proposed over the last several years, is we're going to hide these things. That is not a library that we really want. Now, the legal discussions I was going to mention have already been discussed, but I want to say, yes, there are national groups. Cass County is not a hick town down in the Ozarks someplace where nobody knows where it's at. The national groups know where we're at. They have a thing called a clipping, what we used to call a clipping service. I don't know what they call it now. It was a clipping service because they hired people to read every newspaper in the country and say, if you find any articles on this subject, clip them out and send them to it. And that was popular for hundreds of years, having clipping services. Well, I don't know what they do now, but they have found us. However they went about finding us. And they are reading all of our open materials. They are looking at us. They are saying when or if we're ever going to break the law. And at the time I last talked to them, there were 4 libraries in the state of Missouri, and we were going to punish the first one that breaks the law. And they were very kind, actually, to tell me what you need to do to keep from breaking the law. And these are the arguments you need to make. These are the things you need to do, because we really don't want to sue you, but we will. And if we do sue you, if you do break the law, we do sue you, we're going to throw everything at you that we possibly throw at you. We're going to sue the library as an entity. We're going to sue the library trustees as individuals. We're going to sue the county commissioners as individuals. And we are going to sue this county of Cass as an entity. We're going to sue everybody to make sure that we punish you enough that nobody else in those other 4 places in the state of Missouri want to break the law. They will back off of breaking the law because they see what happens to you. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is not be that one county that's going to break the law and have these people come down on us. Now, it was mentioned at one time, but they don't have any standing in this county. That's not how you get standing. The law you mentioned, Black versus Board of Education. Black didn't have a lawyer, didn't have the money, didn't have the ability to do it. But the national organization came in and said, we'll provide the money, we'll provide the lawyers, we'll provide everything. We need standing. Will you put your name on this lawsuit? And she did. The mother did, and the child, the child, I wasn't quite old enough to remember this, but I was almost old enough to remember it. I remember the films being shown where this little child, maybe a kindergartner, 1st grade, 2nd grade, whatever she was, 5th, 7th grade, 8 years old. She's 8 years old. Being marched in the school, half parents cussing her out, half parents using every kind of nasty word they could. But she was being walked into the school with U.S. Marshals. She was accompanied every day by U.S. Marshals, and she sat in the room by herself with her teacher, but she was integrating that school, the Topeka school system. That's what Black put her name up there so they'd be standing. And that's what would happen here. The national organization would come in and say, okay, we're looking for a parent or parents who have children in Cass County, that live in Cass County, and we want them to put your name at the front of the lawsuit, and we will file this lawsuit. We'll provide the lawyers. We'll provide lawyers that are experts. This is the only type of law they handle. They're experts in this law, and we're going to go after you. And that's what's going to happen if we break that law. And that's why this one line is so efficient, is so important. In this, all materials will be shown as determined by experienced library staff in their proper order on the shelves, freely and easily accessible to the public. That's why that one line is very important, and I want the public to remember that line. I want the public to think about that line, and I want the public to go in and check once in a while to see if those books are where those books belong. Because as soon as those books aren't where those books belong, the public needs to come out, because otherwise the taxpayer is going to pay a fortune for legal fees. And so I wanted to make that important thing. Now the other thing is, we have people who come here and who are in the audience, who are the protesters who are doing all this and saying, my religion is the only religion. My beliefs are the only beliefs in this county. This county has in it, this is a cosmopolitan county. It's not a little monolithic county. It's a cosmopolitan county. We have every major religion in the world in this county. I even know a Wiccan in this county personally. Every major religion is in this county. We have to serve every major religion in this county. So sometimes we have to put behind us our personal beliefs, our personal religion, and say what was best for everybody in this county. There's every ethnic group in the world in this county. We have to serve every ethnic group in this county. What is best for every ethnic group, not what my ethnic group is, not what your ethnic, not the people that I go to church with, not the people that I have coffee with, not my little group, but what's good for the entire county. We really need to think about that. Now, I was told this week there was a little protest about the library putting up Pride Week or Pride Month on some of their things. Is that correct? Okay. I personally know in this county, I can imagine, I see a lot of people in this county. I personally know in this county that there are homosexuals, heterosexuals, bisexuals, lesbians, and I know personally a transsexual in this county. And I'm sure all the other letters of the alphabet are in this county also. I just don't happen to know them. We have to serve those people also. Those people are part of our people out here. Now, one of the things I would recommend to the people here, one of the things I learned a lot about that I should have done a lot sooner, when we were arguing about this book, I went and got a copy of it from Amazon, and I walked the streets, mostly Garden City because that's close to where I live, and Harrisonville because that's where I work, and I'm already in town. But a little bit outside of the county, and it's unbelievable how many people know me because I'm on this board, I've been on the board, and they would just stop me and say, "Hey, are you?" And I'd say, "Yeah," and they'd say, "I want to talk to you about that." And so I I talked to a lot of people about this book, about this thing. But I walked the streets. I ended up giving away, I think, 5 copies of the book because I'd run into parents with children that age, and they'd say, "Boy, this is a book we could really use." And I'd hand it to them. I'd go back. I'd go to Amazon, get another copy. I think Amazon was wondering what I was doing because I kept ordering copies of this book and keep talking to people, giving the book away whenever I felt that people really wanted this book. And I learned a lot about the people of Cass County. I really did. I talked to old people, young people, conservative people, liberal people. I talked to everybody, old, young, everything in this county. And I had one person, I've got one person who looked at the book and said, "Well, the only thing I don't like is this sort of sexual orientation part of the book. The rest of the book is good. But I don't think kids need to know about sexual orientation." That was one complaint that I got out of all the people I talked to. And I got to tell you another story. I have a good friend. He's a good friend, but he's a mega conservative. He's even more than mega conservative. He said if he could be retired, he'd sit and watch Newsmax all day long, 24 hours a day. That's how conservative this guy is. He comes up, he stops his pickup and says, "What's the deal on this book anyway?" "Well, I'll go get my copy. I'll give it to you." And I gave it to him. He looked through this book. He looked through every page of the book. He read all the headlines. He read everything on this book. Now, this is a person about my age, but he's got grandchildren at this age. He's got grandchildren that are preteen and teens. He gets to the end of the book. He hands it back to me and says, "Well, what the hell is wrong with this book? Kids need to know about this stuff." I about fell over right there because I thought, boy, this is the time I'm going to get cussed out. And that was the attitude. That was the attitude of most of the people, virtually all the people I talked to, almost all the people I talked to. We need to take this into consideration. We're on this board, we're representing the government of Cass County, we're representing the people of Cass County, we're representing all the people of Cass County, not just our little coffee clutch or whatever. We're representing everybody in this county, and we need to keep that into consideration. And after I rang and raving, I'll read the line one more time so everybody can remember this. All materials will be shelved as determined by experienced library staff in their proper order on open shelves, freely and easily accessible to the public. I call for the vote.
All right, let's take a roll call vote. I'm gonna start with you, Jessica,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Diana? Yes. Tanya, yes. We will move on to new business. We've got some things to discuss. The compensation study, are you going to
That's me.
share some things with us?
I am, I've got a few things to share.
Okay.
It's mostly general, it's not
Okay.
specific. We completed our study again, actually a refresh of 2022, if you will. He went back and he looked at everything again. So we were, what we did last year, we are good as far as our wages are currently. Now, looking forward to 2025, we are going to have to come up again and bump up some of our wages to stay in that competitive market. It's very important that we do, and to keep our good compensation structure that we've started. So there's just a few adjustments that are going to need to be made. Well, almost every pay class, let me put it that way, almost every group will be bumped up. Okay,
This is for
to-
2025.
for 2025 to keep us in the competitive stage. However, because of what we've done, last year, if you remember, we did the 3% increase and then we did the performance increase. That has positioned us so very well that for 2025, it's not going to be a major a cost to us for this. Now, go on, or let me stick with 2025 for just a minute. There's a proposal for the state of Missouri for minimum wage. 2025 is going to be $13.75. That's what they're talking about right now. With that, even with that said, we'll be fine as long as we continue with the same structure that we have. And that's what we're planning. We're planning the 3% again, and then doing the performance increase again. That keeps us, keeps our wages very competitive, keeps any pay inversion or compression away, and will keep us going in the right path going forward. So that's our plan again for this year, for 2025.
Can I ask you, before
Yes.
you're getting ready to go into 2026?
Pretty close.
Okay, can I just ask just some clarifying things?
That's whatever you like.
I wanted to verify, employees over the max don't receive the market increase, but they are eligible for the performance-based increase.
Correct.
And then that performance-based increase is paid out to them in a one-time.
That's correct.
Okay, what about, other employees that haven't reached their max? That performance base goes into, they're receiving it throughout the year then?
Yes.
Okay, so
That goes
that
to the
all
wage.
goes towards their wage?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the part that really keeps us in the competitiveness
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Of doing that. So yes, that becomes their wage.
Okay.
But
So everybody has the opportunity to get the performance-based pay, just how it gets paid out. If you are maxed, it's a one-time payout. If you're not at the max of your position, then it comes as a part of your, it's part of your pay increase. You're getting the 3% plus whatever that increase is.
correct.
Great.
Correct. And I'll tell you, I was so pleased when this came back and I looked at that and I thought, wow, it worked. Is what I can say, it worked.
Good.
So very happy with that. Going on, if we look at 2026, and because within the study, he gave us the guidelines pretty much for 2026. Now, Missouri in 2026, their proposed is $15.
Tell me what was 2025 again?
$13.75. That's their
And that's
proposed.
the proposed, nothing is passed.
Not until August. That's what they're saying.
Who approves that?
The minimum wage, that's the state of Missouri. That's Jeff City.
The legislator?
It's voted on. It goes on a ballot.
Yeah.
To raise the
It's gonna
minimum
be on the
wage.
ballot
Yes.
in August?
Yes, that's what they're saying. Now, I haven't,
Okay.
that's what I've read. Let me put it that way.
What was the proposal for 2026?
2026, $15.
$15.
Yes.
Okay.
My understanding is, from what I've read, again, they've got enough signatures to get it on the ballot.
Oh, it's a petition.
Yes.
So we're just waiting to find out if it's been approved. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So looking at 2026 with that $15 minimum, what we've been shown what we've looked at and everything, we're still gonna be okay if we follow what we've been, looking at from our compensation study. Because our wages go up again in 2026. Now it's a bigger impact in 2026 because it's jumps up a little bit more. But what we do in 2025, of course, and how that all pans out is going to determine the impact of 2026. So I can't give you
Right.
that yet because I don't know what the facts are yet. But from what we've got now for the next 2 years, if we follow the compensation study we have, follow what we've done, the 3% of the performance increase, we're going to be sitting very competitive.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there's no action the board needs to take or anything. We're on schedule. We're on track.
We are on track. And this is just kind of an update to tell you that we're on track. And it's
So
been well
then
worth
will
what
we
we've
come
done.
back around this time next year and kind of revisit then for 2026
Yes.
as we start preparing for the budget?
Yes, because we'll know more in the figure wise, and what happens, because so much happens depending upon evaluations and the performance increases.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells us a little bit more about where we're going to end up. So,
Is there any questions or anything from the board before we move on? Thank you.
okay, you're very welcome.
All right, next item is the strategic plan year one report.
Yes. So, I wanted to get this done sooner in the year, but many things. But you have it now. And most every piece of it, I had all the data that I needed to kind of go in and compare. Now, when this was originally written, the intent was all of these benchmarks that have specific percentage increases and things like that were intended to be comparative against the 2019 statistics, basically because 2020 and 2021 were like non-existent. This was written in 2022 and adopted in 2023. So when I went to go pull those 2019 numbers, we, this is great news, but we beat pretty much all of those projections, those benchmarks handily. And so that's why I've thrown in a lot of these 2022 so that you could see even the increase where we wanted increases and things from 2022 to 2023, we still beat those benchmarks. So my proposal, part of that, is to say, since this is great news, we want to sustain and grow through 2026. This needs to be a little bit more challenging. And I think we could take our 2023 numbers that we've got reported here and actually moving forward in this plan, use those as our benchmark to go back and look at. So what that will mean is we'll want to not only maintain what we've got, which is important, it's very important to do, but also continue, of course, to try to get to grow to reach that benchmark. Now that we're kind of like we're restarting what zero means.
Yeah.
Only a few other things, and of course we didn't hit everything out of the park, and those things I think we still need to work on, and we can leave those.
Always.
Right.
Yeah,
We
there's
need,
got to be some room.
yes, we need stretch goals, and clearly there's some already in here that exist that we'll want to keep. But my few recommendations for actually making some edits to the plan itself is to the number 2, which talks mostly in the original wording is non-print items, but now here we are. We know that's our exploration library. That's what it's referring to, and so I wanted to specify that that's what we're talking about. And essentially, originally, it was we want to have one.
Yeah.
Well, we have one. And so now what we need to do is focus on what we're doing with it. And I do think while we do want to continue adding to it, I think our main focus and what we should be striving for is the usage of what we have. And anything that we add to it would be therefore contributing to the usage. Because it's very easy for us to go out and add a lot of things to it. But if it's not stuff that patrons are finding value in, then that's not really a good measurement of whether or not we're succeeding. So I made that change in there, set circulation to 600.
So according to the report, we have 62 items in the exploration,
Yes.
and we want to up it to exceed 600
Circulations.
So are there plans to add, I mean, how many more items do we, 62 items to get 600 would be, each item's got to be gone 10 times or something like that. By 2026,
By
I know.
2026, yeah.
Right.
So,
So are we adding more things?
yes, but
What's
I
the
think,
latest thing we added?
I believe the craft kit was the most
Okay.
recent thing that we did, the fiber arts kit. And I don't know, I don't have specific things. I'm waiting, like, as I see something that I think is actually going to be beneficial and fit into kind of the theme we've already created. And I think that's why I didn't want to put a number on how many to add, because maybe we only add one or two things with big impact over the next couple of years, or maybe we add a lot of different things
Okay.
for the impact. But the main thing is I wanted to concentrate on the circulation. And of course, over time, some of the items we have may drop out, either from being lost or, yeah, or just not circulating and we move on to something else. So,
So then we're kind of using I mean, I see the exceed circulation annually by 2026. Do we have, so basically we're using 2023 kind of in the same way as our base of, do we know what that percentage is based on, I didn't do the math.
did I have it in there? I had it, that's on a scratch piece of paper up in my so I don't remember it right off the bat. I did actually. I got with Sarah Llewellyn in technical services. I think I scared her with my initial like, "Hey, do you think this is a realistic goal?" It was much more than 600 circulations, and so she pulled some of the data that she had, and 600 was right around what she thought was realistic, but still something that we would need to make effort
to do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then let's see, that was the big thing. Oh, and in that too, also the diversity audit. That was something I just wanted to make a point of. I felt like when I was going through and trying to figure this KPI, county versus collection demographics, when we did the diversity audits in 2023, the vendors did this. They gave us that information and they could show us exactly where we were at in our county, in our collection versus comparable other public libraries. And this year we didn't have that. And we really tried to go around and figure out, well, how do we know then? Like, we have the starting point. How do we know how we're doing? With the data that we have access to. And we don't have the same, it's not apples to apples. So all I could do in this measurement was to tell you, the percentage of diverse titles in those gap areas that were identified from the audit that over the course of the year were added in to show that we're making effort.
Yeah, I think I would say I really am not understanding exactly how we're measuring that KPI, and maybe that's why what you're talking about, because I was thinking to myself, like, who's studying that diversity criteria and the percent needed? Like, is the library, I mean, are we looking for us to be studying that, or are we looking for someone else, and where did that come from? I would be interested to know that.
Well, we have the reports.
Right.
That's where we're getting the starting point data. That's telling us that's where we were at. But the point of, I believe, doing it annually is because all of the metrics change. So our collection changes, not only like with the things that we purchase, but with the things that we remove from damage or loss, or you know, expiration, of content. So every year, and also the demographics of the county change over time too. And so these audits, they take that stuff into account and it will update with refreshed information each year. So it could move You know, we could find in 2024, we overshot quite a bit and we maybe are exceeding what the average would be for our demographics and similar public libraries. But then the next year we could fall short. I mean, it could always be moving, but we won't know what's happening unless we invest in having these audits. There is a software that we've looked into. The cost of it for a subscription annually is about equal to what it cost us to do these one-time audits through the two vendors that we used in 2023. But what it would do is would give us the ability to run those own audits through that system with our collection, in addition to myriad other things that we could use it for, as far as figuring out what's going on in our different collections in the different libraries. Pinpointing things that are not circulating very well, things that have circulated so much that we might need to go check on them because they're on life support. Maybe we need to refresh the copy. All kinds of little insight to stuff that even branch managers we might be able to give access to, that they can go in there and look at reports on what's on their own shelves and kind of help them figure out what's going on. So that's kind of what I thought. To me, that was more bang for your buck.
As opposed to going through like the Midwest State and in Ingram.
Yes.
So just, I don't remember the cost of what that was.
It was around $8,000, I think, combined.
So it's about, the subscription is around $8,000.
It was around that.
I thought it was closer to 11.
Was it? It might have been one of them was 8,000.
Yeah.
So you're saying the software subscription is closer to the 8,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Might be
least-
something
at
to
least-
think about for the budget.
That's what I was
Discussion.
thinking. Yeah. But it would fit. We believe it would fulfill that need and bring more value. So, and then the other is on goal 5, and that's regarding our outreach. If you looked at the statistics, I mean, granted, we didn't have a bookmobile going out and doing outreach, and we didn't have library by mail in 2019. So, you know, we said, Amy, we have a strategic plan. Look what we'd like for you to do. And she said, all right, watch me. So I thought maybe we need to look at the measurements a little bit more. Like, yes, we can have a lot of outreach events and stops, but one of the ways we know whether or not those are valuable and worth our time and giving patrons in the areas that need it the attention is the usage. Like, how many people are coming to these? What does our circulation at these look like? And so that's what my suggested edits in here were. And again, I went through these with Amy also and asked, is this realistic, but also, you know, a challenge?
Is there a way to break this down by each, I don't know what to call it, it's a program, I guess you call it an outreach program, like you were talking about the bookmobile, library by mail, self-service, outreach events. Like, is there a way to break that down to kind of deepen the measure of success for each of those programs rather than just in a general broad way? Because what if some of the outreach things are like killing it, but maybe something else is just kind of not so exciting? Like, with that, to me, I'm just trying to think of how we can deepen that measure so we can focus on the things that either we want to try to increase, or we just go, maybe this just isn't what the county needs or wants, so let's focus on these things, or let's see what else we could potentially do. I'm just wondering if there's a way to kind of.
A lot of these statistics that Amy reports to us are in those, or what we have in our monthly packets, do address those different things. Like, they're not all lumped together. You know, you've got the kiosk information that's separate. You've got the bookmobile stops and the hours. I have thought about tweaking what her report looks like monthly to kind of, because in the strategic plan, it talks about an increase, a certain number of library by mail patrons.
Yeah.
Well, in the report that you see monthly, it tells us how many new ones there are.
Yeah.
But it doesn't tell us how many active ones there are.
Yeah.
So I think tweaking some of that will make that information more comprehensive also.
Okay, yeah. And then I think you mentioned this, but, with respect to the bookmobile and stops, you were talking, I think that was one of your, suggestions, like, what are the people using the bookmobile for? Like, yeah, okay, they're coming, but is it, you and I even kind of talked about this as well, like, is it just, are they using it for Colts?
Mm-hmm.
And, or are they using it for the purpose of when we have a bookmobile? And just kind of trying to figure out what people are using the bookmobile for, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, and that I think will be a key in the capital improvement
Yeah.
planning thing too.
Right.
So
Okay, cool.
Clarification on item C, establish at least 2 additional points of service. Are we talking about two additional bookmobile stops? We're not ready to decide on another kiosk until we have at least a year to 18 months data on the peculiar, I would hope.
yes.
Um,
So points of service, as the way I define it and what it is in here, it would be like a stationary point of service. So bookmobile, pretty much everything bookmobile does is an outreach event.
okay.
By nature of what it is. So, but a service point would be a branch, a kiosk, maybe some other type of outreach thing that we haven't tried yet. Which I have a few ideas of some
Okay.
things that we could do in the community that we count as, but it's stationary, it's permanent, semi-permanent, it doesn't move all around. It's like in a particular area serving the community in that area.
Are the bookmobile stops, there, I know there's a schedule, but are they fluid that if we see that people just aren't coming at this stop at this time, do we change it?
Oh, and yes, Amy does that quite a bit. Like
Okay,
she reassesses at least quarterly.
okay.
How much time do you give a bookmobile to be established in a particular place?
Well, I would say I guess it depends on the frequency of the stops because there's some places that they only go to once a month. And so you would want to give that probably several months of time and a lot of different approaches to making sure that people know that it's there. And maybe if we have any community partners that can help promote it as well. And so that, but something that they're going to weekly, which they do have some of those, it doesn't take very long to figure out if that's catching on. And sometimes it'll be tweaking the amount of time that they're there. There's one particular stop where they were there for, I believe, an hour, and they wouldn't see anyone till like right before they left, and then all of a sudden, everyone came. They shortened it to 30 minutes, and it's like it it does better. And I guess people feel like, well, I only have this amount of time, so I'm gonna make sure that I get there. So sometimes it just depends. Like you try something, and then you see, and then the patrons tell you with what they're doing, whether they show up or they don't.
If there's a failure happening as far as bookmobile is concerned, do we make a major effort to try to find out why that particular spot or that particular time is failing, or do we just quit servicing it?
No, I mean, Amy, because all of these things she's doing in conjunction and collaboration with somebody in the community that she's going to. So that wouldn't be well, sorry, we're just not showing up anymore. Usually it's an investigation as to, what might be, because some of these are facilities, like residential, retirement, child care facilities. Some of these are just locations that let us come and be there for, certain periods of time. And so some of those are private businesses, some of those are, city officials, depending upon where it is. So, yeah.
The reason I was asking is this is current, this is in the past, so I don't know what's going on there now. But Creighton was getting a bookmobile stop, and it was basically nobody was showing up, and started, well, what's the deal here? Well, the summer school bus came 15 minutes later after the bookmobile left. And so the kids would would get out of summer school at Sherwood, and they'd get to Creighton, but the bookmobile was gone. Whereas if the bookmobile would have came 15 minutes later and left later, we'd have a whole bus load of kids coming off of the Sherwood summer school, and they would have been available. And so, we need to ask questions once in a while about.
Okay, can I go back on a couple of these and just ask some other questions? Maybe you can, I don't expect you to have answers right now, but maybe we can try to, with going back to that first objective A under goal 1, was some of it due to that discrepancy you found a couple of months ago that bumped those numbers that maybe they looked less?
No, because I went back knowing that had happened, and I went back.
And changed these other numbers?
Yeah.
What can we learn from the info about what the active patrons are doing and where they're doing those things? Like, just for the,
Quite a bit. It just depends on what kind of reports that you want. I don't know what kind of introduction you got to Orange Boy and Savannah, which is the software that we use to get this information. But they do, based on the interactions that people have with their library card. So if they tend to check out media and not really books so much, then they're in this kind of classification. If they are adults but they check out a lot of youth materials, that's a whole nother. I think that one's called bedtime stories. Like, they have these cute little names for them. So that tells us how people are using, at least as far as circulation goes. And then, of course, we can always tell, like, compared to what their city is or their address is, and what branch is their home branch versus what branch did they last use, because we do have some folks that go between a couple different, depending on probably work and home.
I was just thinking, like, especially as we're looking to talk through like the capital improvement plan, that it might be helpful just for the trustees to have a little more in-depth of some of the things as we go forward, just because we're going to be making decisions of, where do you want to project things into the future. It might be helpful to have a deeper understanding, not better, but deeper understanding. On the goal number, or the objective number B, about the annual visits, is there any way to track what the visits equate to, like computer use, story time, some program or materials, or is it just pretty much
It's like the
just
foot
coming in the door?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to verify
It would be
that.
really, really, really cool if we
Right,
could get that much, but no.
So I just wanted to get a clarification to just make sure I'm understanding, like, on the objective numbers, objective C, what physical items constitute? Like, we're talking books, newspapers, magazines, the exploration library, is that a part of it?
Yes,
Movies,
like the
music.
stuff that we have tangibly in this building or in our buildings.
Is there anything that maybe I'm not thinking of, like, we still have music and
We do. CDs are not that
hot anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we do have movies.
We do.
Okay.
Lots.
Okay.
And that's still very popular.
Do we still have, like, I mean, I know we have like the Vox books and we still have books you can listen to.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's all of that. That's physical.
Okay.
So anything that they're getting, like from Overdrive or Libby, they're getting it through an electronic resource. So it's not a tangible thing. That would be.
That's under the other.
Yes.
Okay.
Digital items would be what that would be.
And then under goal number 3, the programs, objective A. What I want to make sure I understand what we're considering an event for the library, and like what information is being used to determine the success of an event. Is it just, hey, we got people to come, and do we have I'm just trying to get a feel, wondering if we could make the goal a little more, have more depth to it than I feel like, and these are broader, I recognize, but just trying to get some depth to some things.
I think for this one, and for this especially being a plan that has come post pandemic, a lot of libraries didn't know and still don't know if they've recovered from being closed for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And you can see when you look at the numbers that that had a huge impact across the board on what we were seeing with engagement
Yeah.
with the library.
Yeah.
And so I think that's partly why this is the way that it is, because we still want to make sure that we're engaging the program attendees. So we have a lot of patrons that's really all they do. Yeah, so just like we have ones that come to just get books and don't come to programs, we have some that just come to programs and they don't utilize the circulation. And so right now, I don't know how to track people who just come to programs other than program attendance. There are ways I think to do it, maybe through our registration online program registration system. But I'm just not at a point yet where I can look at what
No worries.
that needs to be, to make that work.
Does this include events through by the outreach service as well, or is this just programs offered at the physical branches? Does it include outreach services? Do you know?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Gotcha.
I know. I don't know. It's possible it's total. I feel like it might be in total, so it could be double dipping on the numbers.
Okay.
But let me look at that. Although I tell you, if we weren't including the actual attendance at outreach events,
Yeah.
then it's okay that these numbers would include the outreach attendance.
Say that again.
So the numbers here where we're not actually keeping track, like I'm not reporting here on goal number 5, the attendance at these events, it's the number of events. So I'm going to say that this program attendance that you're seeing on the other page is all of it.
Okay.
But now, if we move forward and make the change where we want to start measuring the outreach event attendance, then that will need to be just on this one and separate from the others.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I'm sorry, because I'm just having lots of things that under goal 4, that objective B, that branches are open an appropriate number of hours for each community. I'm a little hesitant of using the Missouri Public Library standards for hours of operation. I remember back in 2022, Sherry wanted to open the Archie branch starting on Friday, having it be open on Fridays, and the reason that the branch was told no is because of the Missouri Library standards saying they were open to a number of hours. It took her getting creative to figure out how to get that branch open. I guess for me, I'm wondering if there's any other options we could use as a KPI for that objective, maybe in conjunction with, rather than just solely. Because part of me felt like for a while, like it was just no, we're open the appropriate number of hours for that community, and there wasn't any forethought as to, well, but does the community want it, and should be provided even if it goes beyond what the standards suggest. And so I just wondered if you could be contemplating like maybe some other KPI that might help inform us besides just the.
I can give you some insight on that also. So the staffing at her branch and the budget that we used was
That was part of
it. And so because it was a concern as to whether or not we could add staffing due to the cost, the public library standards are your minimums.
Right.
So they're pretty much like, if you can do this based on what your community is, then you're good.
Yeah.
It's always, if you can do more, please do.
Yeah.
So it's basically making sure that we're not falling below
Yeah.
where we should be. Sherry got very creative and it worked out really well. Because she did a lot of studying and analyzing on the actual traffic patterns that she was seeing, based on the circulation, and she is open the same number of hours that she previously was, with the same number of staff, but the way she worked it, she's able to be open on that day. And I think it's going great. I looked at the stats for the last couple of Fridays, and I think she's getting good interaction on that. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think this is just the minimum. I don't think it's meant to be the goal, like what we're aspiring to.
So then how are we gonna determine, maybe I didn't read through all the stuff enough again, that how are we gonna determine, okay, so all of our branches meet that minimum, how are we gonna determine that it's appropriate though for that community? Like, what are we gonna use to make that determination? Because so basically what what we're saying is, well, the KPI we're using, everybody's good. Because everybody's open. So what are we gonna use to, does that make sense?
It does. I don't know what to put there because I think there's a lot of factors. So with Sherry, it was branch staff feedback. That's never a bad thing to put down.
Yeah.
With Pleasant Hill, it was the expansion of the building and the anticipated engagement with the community.
It could be patron feedback.
Yeah.
I've had people stop me and say, why can't the NRC be open on 1 or 2 Sundays a month, like the first and third? You can go to Mid-Continent up at Grandview on Sunday now and stuff like that. So it could be patron request or input.
I think we might want to consider, like, how are we gonna, like, additional the performance indicators that are gonna help us recognize if it's appropriate. Because otherwise we're just gonna stay at that base. I mean, we have the potential to just stay at that baseline knowing that we're at the minimum. But how do we stretch ourselves to go, but do the different communities, are they requesting more? I think there needs to be some way, just my personal opinion, to verify that we're doing what the community has the need for, the desire for, as well as within the budget. But maybe, I don't know, think about it.
Yeah, because
Because I don't really think that's a very, I think otherwise this is just gonna be one of those things where, okay, there's no reason to have it on our strategic plan. And maybe we just take that off, I don't know.
Maybe we do. I mean, I can tell you that's not something that's gonna go. I mean, just in the natural course of running a library system, that's just a big thing that you need to pay attention to, is your service hours and staffing. So.
Well, just as Sherry or Archie has been successful with the adjustment, maybe our other smaller branches, Garden City or Drexel, may see that they need to do something along that line too, or whatever. And so this gives them, even though it may not give them any more hours, but maybe this gives them the impetus to think about it. How can I get more patrons in if I was, because they're closed a couple of days a week.
Or have very short days.
Right, or short days. Even if we just add an extra hour onto a couple of days or something like that. So it gives them some growth, ideas for growth.
Right.
And not just get complacent and, oh, well, that's the way that's our time period for the last 10 years. We'll just leave it that way.
Right. I guess maybe just thinking about how that could be stretched a little bit is my only other thought. Isn't it good?
Yeah. Talk to our managers and see when they're busy and when they're not busy. If they're not busy, we could take that hour and put it in some other slot.
Well, right now we look at circulation numbers and we can get that by hour.
Right.
And that has given us some insight. Looked at that at Garden City a couple of years ago. We used that for RG for this. What I would like to do is, although we can't necessarily figure out the foot traffic, what they're coming for, we can get actual people counters that will give us the reports on how many people are coming in and leaving across the hours of the day. And right now we don't have the ability to know. And so you just talk to staff and go, well, you know, what's it like here and there? Which, you know, they're going to be close.
Yeah.
But some of it's going to be the perception based on, you know, how many people they're having to help. Because sometimes you can have a full house and not have a lot of people in need of assistance. And it might not feel quite as busy as it is. So I would like to, that's something I'm looking into. I'd like to have that across the board too. I don't feel super confident in the reliability of the people counters we have right now. And if we could upgrade those and get something that's going to give us better insight into the information, I would like to do that. And that would help with this.
Yeah.
If we wanted to add something like that in it.
That's a good idea.
All right, so I guess we're not. Can we go ahead and go down to the action item for this and then come back? Are you guys okay if we do that? So what you would like for us to do is basically just approve your revisions to the strategic plan. Anybody else I'm sorry, I feel like I monopolized all of that. Anybody else have any questions or anything for discussion with the strategic plan? If not, or even if we do, I guess, I don't know, sometimes I go back and forth on how I do this. I'm like, let's get a motion and then we'll talk. Let's talk, get a motion. I'm so sorry.
I have anything else to say about it.
We're talking about this.
Yep.
Yeah.
I make a motion that to clarify what I had.
Yep.
I make a motion that we approve the updates, revisions to the Cass County Public Library Strategic Plan 2023 through 26.
And I'll second it. Okay, let's take a roll call vote to approve the recommended updates to the strategic plan. Jessica?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Tanya, yes. Okay, now let's come back to under new business, the social media policy procedure. I'm not quite sure where to begin. I think that the way we have to think of the library, we have to always remember the library is not a divisive place. The library is a welcoming place to everyone in the community that it serves, and the library has to remain neutral in all its activities to ensure this. There's been requests to create a social media policy. I don't know if, I mean, we already have a social media policy, but maybe to tweak that. I don't know if it would be better to contemplate if there's an operational need for a for a social media policy or conversation with that. But that was what was brought to the attention of the board. Was it this week? Last week? Last week. Is the library promoting ideas within the library that could be exclusive to other people, could be rejecting of other people because they have different ideas? I think we always have to come back to the library is for the entire community. It offers resources to that community. It's funded by and provided for the enrichment of the community that it serves. And so I think as a library, we have to always come back to our purpose. And we're not looking to promote ideas or exclude ideas, but in many ways, when we suggests something, it is in fact a promotion of something, whereas the library needs to be neutral in what it does. And Robin and I talked about this last week. I think our discussion was basically that the library, I mean, our library is doing really good things. We have a lot of good programming. We have a lot of things going on in our branches and our outreaches. Those are the things that we're going to plug as we go forward. Correct? And that's what we talked about.
We can certainly focus on those. I think if we are wanting to change fundamentally how we approach social media, we're going to need a staff, some very specifics from you all about what that means. Like, what are we posting? What are we not posting? I do not want any of my staff to be nervous or second guess.
Right.
A lot of them contribute to the branch pages. And then of course we have a marketing and PR person that does our main things.
Right.
And the issues that we brought up last week have made them question what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, if we make any changes to how we've been doing things, we just need a very specific direction as to what that means, and then we should be able to manage that.
Could it simply be just calendar events, just things that are actually going on at our branches? I mean, that's pretty specific.
I ask myself the question, can this cause division? Does it promote an idea that's a specific idea? The library is not about division. The library is not about promoting one idea and not promoting another, because if we're going to promote one idea, you have to be willing to promote everybody's ideas. And that's not the point of the library. Just like the point of the library in what we provide is all kinds of information for people to come to seek out for themselves. We're not telling them this is the right information, this is good information, this is bad information. That's not our goal. Our goal is to just have information available for people to determine for themselves. And I think that's to me, a very simple question is, can this cause division within the community? Because it's saying, hey, look at this. That's how I look at things.
I think with that, though, there are some things that very clearly you could assume would cause division, and then there are some things that you may not realize. And then, so that's where we come into staff worrying.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, if we only focus on our programs, it's fine, it's great, and we do a lot of that, and we have a lot of content for that.
Yeah.
But what if someone doesn't like one of the programs that we're offering?
Well,
Does that then become
to me
something we can't do anymore when it's about that topic because someone got upset about it? I mean, this could potentially set a precedent, I think, for how we respond.
So let me ask you this question. If you're thinking of, I mean, are you and is the staff thinking of the library as a place that is neutral in everything that it does?
I think we are inclusive.
That's not the same meaning.
That's not the same meaning. We don't mean to. Okay, so when you talk about in the field of librarianship, neutrality or fairness, all of those types of terms come up in how we're supposed to approach what we do. And I've always seen that in the instance of you've got to make available multiple viewpoints. And it doesn't, and so it's in therefore we're included. So if we're going to have information about this, we want to make sure if there's also other information that we have that too. And we want the collection definitely to show balance on those things. So those things are available. So have the same kind of mindset for what we're promoting on our social media. And so we have these items because they are of interest and representative to various parts of the community. And the social media is just awareness that we have the items. And so an opportunity that we take that a lot of organizations and private businesses take is what are the benchmark things that as you go throughout the year are being recognized. And so, we've talked about Black History Month and Women's History and autism. Actually, it just was Autism Acceptance Month is what April this year was instead of just autism awareness. Pride is one of those. So we've treated it like we've treated all of those other things, and you can go back in our posts and see. We post about Merry Christmas and Christmas programming. We also have Happy Hanukkah. We have Kwanzaa. Like we're acknowledging all of these things exist. And
so within the Merry Christmas idea, would we be promoting there's obviously the idea of Santa Claus and then there's the idea of the birth of Christ. So are we promoting those things as well?
It's pretty much, it exists.
Right.
If you celebrate it, cool. Here's some stuff that may be of interest to you. It's the same thing with Hanukkah.
I think we need to look at the book displays, especially at Christmas. There are books on the religious side, on the fantasy or the historical Santa Claus that time. But yes, there are books in the library dealing with the birth of Christ. Yes.
Well, I understand there's books in the library. I think I have no doubt that, the library has differing viewpoints on a lot of different ideas. The question I think that was brought to the attention was, is the library promoting certain ideas, but not all ideas? And that's where I come back and go, if the library is truly neutral, the library really can't promote an idea. The library can make sure we have lots of different viewpoints on ideas, but pinpointing an idea is not the role of neutral.
Well, it seriously hinders us from being able to, part of what we do is organize information to make it accessible to people, and that is picking themes of things that are of interest and current and so again, this makes us question, well, what can we show? And if it's nothing anymore, then that takes a huge chunk of what we do, and we wouldn't be able to do it. I understand, and we talked about this too. Where does it stop?
Yeah.
And that's my concern, is where does it stop? If the only negative feedback that we have gotten on a social media post in all of 2024, and we have already posted, I want to say, we've got to be at 100, 150, has been on the Pride post. And now we're having this conversation. So I feel like I know we're talking in general terms and we're talking about neutrality, but it doesn't feel like, it feels like since we can't say we can't put Pride out, then we can't put anything out.
That is kind of the role of being neutral.
I have something to say.
Okay.
The Pride post, I think, got some people's attention, but I think that we need to take a serious look, regardless, at what we're posting, and that our employees understand what they're posting. Because I actually went back, because I'll admit, I don't pay that much attention to any of the library posts. I don't go on there and search them all the time. But I went back because we spoke, and I went back to the last year. And there was, I can say, as a matter of fact, Jesus was not mentioned in the Easter post or the Christmas post, So I feel like that's purposely ignored. But the other thing that was most upsetting was to see the Black History Month post and see that it definitely was very, there was 3 fists, clenched fists that were in that post. Is that seriously the best thing that we have to say about Black history? It was a very questionable post. I don't think that the that the employee that put that together or used that really understood what's behind that. I mean, that is disturbing on a lot of levels. That came from a, that communist, socialist, Marxist thought process. It's not something that we should be putting. I mean, we don't have anything better, to say about Black History Month. That's not even. I don't even think it was appropriate at all. So I think that we do need to really look at what we're posting, and are we posting something that's aggressive and purposely divisive and trouble causing? I think that we need to do better. At the end of the day, I don't think that it was appropriate. I think there was a lot better that we could have done. So
I think that, Jessica, those of us that are older and remember the 1960s, the 3 raised fists happened at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, and 3 U.S. athletes raised their fists like that when they received their gold medals. And that's what I equate it to. Roger, do you remember that? But those of us that are older may remember that, while a different generation views it your way. It's both ways. It's both ways. And I understand what you're saying, but it's both ways.
Well,
it's not anything that I've ever heard about in my life, and I think that that's my whole point, is that we should be paying more attention to what we're doing. Like, unless you're purposely being divisive. I mean, if that's the goal, then it's whatever. I guess you guys can continue to have divisive things and cause problems. I mean, this is my last meeting, so you guys can do whatever you want at the end of the day, and I can come into public comment and I can throw out what I think about it. But I think that just to kind of chuckle it off and say, oh, well, this was about the Olympics. No, it wasn't. Like, there's a lot more back behind it. And I don't think that it was, I hope that it was not purposely posted. I mean, that raised fist has most recently been used for Antifa, BML, like nothing good. So we need to understand, if we're going to go to a social media post, what exactly is behind that. So I do think it's important, extremely important. And I think that it seems very aggressive. Like, why was that the choice for Black History Month? Seriously.
I haven't seen this post, but from what you're saying, I kind of agree with that, because if I can correct Becky a little bit,
Okay.
there were supposed to be 3 athletes that were in the Olympics in Mexico City, and one of them got stuck in traffic and didn't get there in time for his race. And so they got the gold and they got the silver, but there was this other poor guy from some other country standing there who didn't know what they were doing, and the 2 people that were there as a protest, yes, raised their fist on that, and the poor guy from the third country, who wouldn't have been there if the other guy would have not got stuck in traffic. But the fists also were a symbol of the Black Panthers, and the Black Panthers, they were good and they were bad. Okay, they're both sides of the spectrum, and they did a lot of good things in communities and things like that to help young kids that were having problems on the streets and things like that. But they were also revolutionary, a revolutionary group that did things that and promoted things that probably weren't too civil. And so I think what you're saying is correct. That if we had the Black Fist, I think that was probably because of the ignorance of somebody as to what the history of the Black Fists were, the history of the Black Panthers, and the history of the Olympics, and the whole thing that went along with Black Fists. I would say that if we're dealing with something that historical, our people need to talk to somebody before they would put something like that on us, because that was controversial. That would have been controversial to those of my age and those of Becky's age. That would have been controversial to have the fifths up there, because it had so many sub meanings and things like that. I think there were a lot of things happening back in the '60s. Riots, burning down cities, basically. Uh,
I didn't want to bring all that up.
yeah, let's not,
Yeah, listen,
maybe we should bring it up. But there are things that we could have put up that would have been more peaceful, shall we say, than the three fifths. I'll have to agree with you on that.
I've thought about this a lot since the postings last week. And like Jessica, I also looked through the last 6 months or whatever. I think we need to talk about grace. This was just, it wasn't anything deliberate. It was something that you look everywhere and people are talking about things that happen each month, you know, the autism awareness or the Black History or the Pride Month, or next month it's all patriotic in the Olympics and things like that. I think I tried to do some reading in some of my literature, and if you don't agree with it in the workplace, most of the time you just go on. And let's just, I would like for us to, we have a social media policy, let's try to work through that and go from there. That's my opinion.
I'd like to add that it does need to be neutral, and it seems that if something is left of center, it's considered neutral. If it's right of center, it's considered political, and not in just many arenas of life. You can say, you can promote things that are left. If you start promoting things that are right, you're being political. And you know,
I see what you're saying.
You know,
Yes.
and so
Please,
so
in the audience, otherwise I gotta ask you to leave. This is board business we're trying to discuss here.
So to be, that's why if we just kept it to the calendar, and we don't, I mean, if you guys don't agree, that's fine. I'm just thinking if we kept it to the calendar, that is completely neutral to our library, to what's going on in the library. And if somebody doesn't like what the library is offering, that's too bad, because it's something that the library's doing, it's a calendar event. But
Just waiting.
I think no matter what society, the biggest thing is that we, as library, make sure that we are not being purposeful in in being divisive. And I have a hard time. I really have a hard time with the fact that I mean, we're full of information. So before we go use some specific symbol, it might be a wise idea to look up what it means and all the things and what it comes from. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I agree with Diana. I think that our social media policy or our social media, it should be used to promote what we're doing within the branches, but if you refuse to and you just want to leave it alone and leave it all up in the air, the bare minimum is we need to watch what the heck we're doing. So.
Well, I guess that's the question at the end of the day is, do we stick with what we're doing and just revisit it? If there's, I mean, we look and see what's happening, or do we say, hey, let's stick with, surely there's enough good things going on within our own county libraries that we can fill social media posts with, but
there's tons of stuff
yeah,
that the library's doing. It's just that when you start getting outside the library, I mean, people get offended over everything. And, you can't celebrate Columbus Day, you can celebrate. You
Okay,
can't,
Mr. Marshall, please. I can hear you up here. I don't
I
know. if
wasn't
you really-
speaking, I was listening.
Are you-
I'm sorry. I'll excuse myself.
Okay.
I'll-
Okay. I can hear
It's
y'all.
like
It's
watching
distracting.
paint dry. Listening to folks talk about something.
Please,
not
sir.
explaining it.
I mean, you
I'll
can
leave it
either,
on my own.
thank you. Go ahead, Diana.
oh yeah,
Be back.
people get offended over so much, and so just to be careful, on just what you're saying, Jessica, also be careful what we post, and if we just focus on calendar that and all the good things that the library is doing.
Well, the only negative feedback was on the one post. And if you go back and look at it today, it's primarily positive. So,
Well, I think I think the point though is whether it was one post, 10 posts, positive, negative, I think that we live in a world now where for some reason everybody thrives on being divisive. I mean, we're all human at the end of the day. We all come from the same, I mean, we're all made up of the same stuff. And so the library should be a place where you can come and feel welcome at all times. And if we can promote that, regardless of how you think about life, that's what the library needs to be able to do.
I'd just like to ask, how many complaints were there really about this post on the?
I'd have to go back and look. I didn't have any directly to me. I just,
If we're going to just talk about one complaint
no.
or two complaints, 10 complaints.
it was more than one. I mean, there were several people that interacted with the post in a negative way, either from selecting a particular emoji or that in a comment. But it was less than the people that had positive comments and had positive emojis. And so I was alerted that there was discussion in the community beyond just the interaction with the post. So I knew that had happened, but I have only received positive feedback personally about it because I have been told by several people that because we just acknowledged it, it's all acknowledged that it existed and that if you want information on it, here's a resource that has some, made them feel welcome in the library. Because there are a lot of places where people who identify in that group or have relatives and friends and loved ones who identify do not feel welcome and do not feel safe. I think the positive effect of one simple post outweighs the fact that some people disagree. But
You just need to be careful that it's not lopsided. That's,
well, what would be the opposing thing to post? Like, what would be the viewpoint? Like, that's a federally recognized month. So what other thing that's on the same kind of level, same classification, that would be an opposing viewpoint would we share to balance that?
and it wouldn't have to be necessarily opposing. There could be like, Governors of America, pro-life day, there's National Day of Prayer, there's National Pro-Life Day, there's National Day to celebrate the persecuted church. There's lots of things out there that are national that are not on. And it would just, but that many people would find that offensive. And so rather than put everything out there to keep it even from right and left, just to keep it to where it's not divisive. Tanya has used that several times. To not create division in our community, putting things up that would be divisive. I mean, can you imagine 3 fists with, Second Amendment, that's aggression, that's offensive. Just to keep it.
I don't know how we could do that. That'd be lovely, but I don't know how. Some people are gonna be so negative. If we're talking about just a few people, we can't satisfy a few people. We're working to include everybody in this cosmopolitan area. And there are gonna be people in this cosmopolitan area who, I don't care what you put up, well, you put up Santa Claus, they're gonna be offended. You put up, you know, a religion and Christmas, they're gonna be offended.
So if
We have to say, we're not gonna score a 5 every time. And I think I think the 1 to 5 ratings is kind of stupid because everybody wants a 5. If on a 1 to 5 rating, 3 is a C. And, 4 is a B and 5 is an A. If they don't deserve an A, why not give them a 3? Because that's the minimum they expect, but that's not the way the rating works. But either way, if we have to balance and, be kind to the people who criticize us and say, we understand your criticism and so forth and so forth. But at the same time, you don't bend to the people who criticize you if it's a small number that criticize you. Yeah, I mean, you answer them and say, this is what it was all about, this is what we were trying to do, this is why we did it, and you explain the criticism to the people who are being critical, but at the same time, you can't bow to every criticism, or you're not going to make it if you try to bow to every criticism, and this is part of what I was trying to say tonight is we can't bow to everything, but at the same time, we can acknowledge everybody. And that's what you really need to do, is just acknowledge that, yes, you were offended by it, but we have people in this community, in this cosmopolitan area, that this is their life, this is their lives, this is the way they're living their lives. And so answer them, but don't bend to them, I guess is what I'm saying. It's probably your best deal. And if you come along and you put something on that 80%, 50% of the people are offended by, yeah, then you got a problem. But if you come and have less than 10% of the people who come along, that's not a problem. You don't want to ignore that 10%, but at the same time, you don't want to battle that 10%, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that if the library's doing something with respect to it, we would definitely, I mean, obviously it'd be something that is happening in if the branches are doing something, highlight it. That's how I.
But not like, just so you know, everyone, that it is National Library Week in this first full week in April,
Well, I mean.
unless it had an actual event tied to. I mean,
Well,
I'm asking for clarification
I'm
because
just looking and saying, is that divisive being National Library Week? I don't think so. We're just saying, hey, we're recognizing libraries play a valuable role in our community. Here's National Library Week. Woo woo.
Yeah.
I mean, here's some programs we're doing, some kind of whatever. But I mean, I think
what we're doing, we need more parameters to make sure that we can be confident moving forward in what we're doing. I think that's a start for sure. Putting the main focus on the things that are happening. And if you've seen the guidelines that we have, like the internal procedures things, it's very heavy on that. That's predominantly,
for sure,
especially with the branch content that they're putting out. Is. So that's not a big ask at all, and that's clear, and that's something we've always been doing. So, but I think I'm trying to make sure that and so now it seems like things that are, national holidays, federal recognition.
Hey, Zach, did we lose Jessica?
He's not also
No, Jessica.
just
No, so national holidays, federal recognition months, benchmark things, stuff like that, that probably is now in the let's not pile because those aren't things. So, that's what I would like is more specifics about like
maybe it would be worthwhile because I know this affects you a lot, right? Danielle, so maybe it'd be worthwhile for like you guys to get together and talk and come up with like some questions, concerns, things that
Zoom
you're trying to think through as,
She needs to
you know,
rejoin it.
that might be, maybe there's some very specific things and we can kind of address those as, I mean, because, you know, I'm not trying to say this is exactly what's going to happen, but I think if we focus on the programming, I just don't know how people, I just don't know how we're going to be, you know, I don't know how we're going to be doing a bad thing that way. And we're neutral. We're just saying, hey, here's what we're doing. This is awesome. This is good. This is what the library's doing. Come join us. Come be a part of what we're doing.
Well, yes, clearly we can. That was Jessica. She's.
She should be able to rejoin now.
Yeah, you said you need to. She said you need to let her in.
I'm not. That's fine.
Yes. So, yeah, clearly, Danielle and I will get together after. I mean, we kind of didn't know what the discussion would be.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was nothing for us to do at that point.
Yeah.
But now that the discussion's been had and people have had the opportunity to kind of talk about what you're thinking and everything, we can certainly get back together and kind of look at what we've historically done in light of the discussion and see what kind of questions we may have from there.
And maybe as you're looking through, you know, I mean, I was reading the policy that we have and the procedures that you guys do. I mean, if there's things where you're like, I feel like this is just not clear enough, then you can bring it to the board for us to see how we can clarify that, I guess, as well. I mean, I don't know if there will be things, but as you're talking about those things, if there's stuff within the obvious policy and procedure that you put together as a result of the policy, then, you know, we want to address those things and try to be as clear as we can, without saying, do only this or do only that.
Well, we certainly want a comprehensive understanding because what we don't want to do is have to come ask for permission every time we want to do something.
And we want the staff to be
Yes.
confident in what
Yeah.
they're doing and not be fearful.
Yes.
We don't want them to be fearful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
big priority on that, so.
Is there anybody else have any thoughts towards this? I don't know that there's anything that we specifically want to do this evening. I appreciate the conversation. If not, we can move on. We're all good? Okay. Let's move on to director's reports.
Thank you, Amy Lee. You're reporting on changes in staff positions.
Right. So in May, we hired two folks. We hired Ambrosia Estes to be a 24-hour library assistant in the bookmobile. And Sarah Herndon is a 20-hour library assistant here at the Harrisonville branch. We actually have completed interviews for a 30-hour library assistant position at NRC. That happened in June, so you'll have to wait to hear how that went. It was an internal hire, so actually now we have another current open position there to fill, which we will probably likely complete by the end of this
Is
month
it like a
too.
sub position then that needs to be
I
filled?
believe
in
it's a
just
20.
20 hour.
20. So
Yeah.
now we have the 20 hours.
We have the 20.
Yes, so
We'll have it done here shortly.
Good. Nice.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. And so just a few things, a little update since last week when I reported out. The bookmobile, they had been having issues with their hydraulic leveling system, but they got that taken care of last week, and it was actually mostly they just needed to flush it and replace all the seals on it. So, but it's running now, it's good. At Pleasant Hill during a recent heavy thunderstorm, water actually was coming in to the study room that has the windows. Yeah, it was coming in underneath the windows. But our contact at Royal Construction, Zach got with him and he got out. It was basically sealant that it wasn't completely sealed on the bottom where it should have been. So that is taken care of, and we had water extraction so it wouldn't mess up the carpet. Um, then the capital improvement plan, I do have an update beyond what is there. Steve, we have a date for the initial facility tour with him, and his resource that he has, architectural resource. And so it's going to be me and Zach and Lee and our facilities specialist, Scott, is going to drive us around, and that's going to happen on Thursday, July 18th. And I believe it's going to be pretty much an all day affair to hit all the places.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yes.
That rolling.
Yeah. And then a couple, it's not show and tell because I have nothing to show, but it's a tell because we have 2 new electronic resources that we're going to start July 1st. And one of them is chiltonlibrary.com. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Chilton repair manuals, but it's automotive repair information. So Chilton is actual. Yes. Chilton actually has a database of automotive repair information. And so it covers maintenance and repair, and it's for a huge variety of different kinds of makes and models. You can even pull up information from like a 1930s, like what do they think, Model A. I was playing around in it the other day. And it's got a video library, it's got diagrams, it's got all of that kind of stuff. Now, historically, not so much recently, but we used to collect the print Chilton manuals, and they're big things, and they take up a lot of space, and they only cover so much, makes and models and years and stuff, and they get filthy because where's everyone using these?
Yeah, their garage.
In their garage, leaning it over their car. So we had already kind of tapered way back on collecting those materials, but I know that we have a lot of do-it-yourself folks, and automotive hobbyists in the area, and Cass Career Center actually has an automotive technician program. Chilton has the certification exam prep in it as well. So I thought it would be a good resource to bring on and see how it does. And then the other one, we're all very excited about. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it's called Novelist. And it's basically Novelist, yes. And so it's a reader's advisory database. And so it's basically, anything that you would want to know about, like, almost any published title that it can tell you. You can go and you can look up a title of a book. If you like certain elements of how that book is written, because lots of people have different preferences as to what they like. That's similar, and similar authors, you can get series information, like you read one, you want to know what the next in the series, how many in the series, all of that stuff is in there. And I know our staff will use it just as much as patrons would like to use it. So that one's also going to start on July 1st as well. We are looking at not renewing Gale legal forms, and that is what actually makes this possible. But Gale legal forms just hasn't been, it used to get a lot of utilization, but in the past several years, it does not, and we've been really trying to promote it. And a lot of times, if there's interest, but people just didn't know that you had it, the promotion helps with that. So that's what we're just kind of switching that out for something we think might get more utilization.
That's cool. I had a couple questions. It was boldened and mentioned several times the internet issues here at Harrisonville. Do we know what the problem is? And is there a fix, or is it just the nature of?
Well, I know today Zach has discovered that we need some new hardware here. Yeah. So that we can't blame on the service provider, right? As much as I'd like to.
But some of it is the service provider?
Some of it is, yeah. I think that the frequency we've been seeing of late is probably that equipment failure.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay, good. All right. Another question about here. Back in April, you mentioned, the skylights still leaking. How are things, I mean, have rained again, and so how are,
I've gotten no additional reports, so it seems to be like I'm so hesitant to like declare anything. It just I'll just leave it at I'll have no additional reports about water leakage to the skylights.
nice. All right, trustee reports, foundation hasn't met, right, since that,
Well, the foundation has not met. They meet on July 8th, but I do have for every board member a, from the foundation, a, library bag that, we give to our friends of the library. And, you can grocery shop or fill it up with library books. Yes.
But not both in the same
There's
thing.
one for
Not
you,
both the same
too.
thing. Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it with, Pat, okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Are they gonna be selling these at the libraries?
We try not to sell them in the library because that's another thing that the branch managers have to collect us. At the book fair, at the book sale, we handed them out and, they were sitting in my garage. And so I decided to share some of them with the board trustees so they can, when you're at the grocery store, fill it up.
thank you.
Okay.
We used to sell these at the library.
And we do sometimes, and they may be in there again, but it's just another cumbersome thing for the branch manager to put that $3 over in a different envelope,
Yeah.
and it's just more work than
Yeah,
we need to ask them to do, especially during summer reading.
for sure.
They used to do them around before Christmas.
Yes. Yeah, so they may show up in the branches.
You want to,
Okay,
all right,
I want to recognize Roger and thank Roger Toomey for his 16 years of service. He came on in June of 2008, and I did a rough calculation. That's 196 monthly meetings. And you probably attended more because, like, just this year, we've had at least 2 every month.
yes.
So, but Roger has represented the citizens of Cass County and Garden City, Creighton, and Urick area very well. He's a regular user of the local library. He's also a regular supporter. He's always makes a yearly contribution to the foundation, and he always has used books to contribute when we have a used book sale. He's thoughtful in his votes. He's thoughtful on when we should have that levy election many years ago. It seemed many years ago, 2020. And he supported the effort in his community. He knows his Constitution. He knows his First Amendments. Because of his daily job here in Cass County and his interaction with people in Harrisonville, he gets a feel of what the citizens want and expect from a library. So Roger, thank you for your dedication to the library. I'm going to miss sitting by you, and I've appreciated your friendship over the years and your spirit of citizenship.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an interesting time. Most of it was because we didn't have any money. We couldn't do anything. And there's never a good time to ask for taxes. It just comes up again. There's never a good time to ask for taxes. So you just have to do it. And that's what we finally ended up doing, is saying, we're so broke, we just got to do it. This isn't a good time, but we just got to do it. And I can't believe, even to this day, that a tax increase would pass by a 60% vote. This says something about the citizens of Cass County and their love of the libraries and things like that. And I was also talking about earlier, the love of the library is a nationwide thing. We got a flood down at Archie, and it hit the internet, it hit the national scene, and we started getting checks from all over the United States. They didn't know where Missouri was, much less Archie was. And we got all these checks in the mail, and we have all this money. What are we going to do? We're going to put a line item in our budget that this money belongs to Archie, and if something happens, that Archie needs some money. We've got some money for Archie, and it so happened that somebody came along and offered us a building in Archie. And if you've never been to Archie, stop in at the library. If you ever get a chance, it's a fantastic thing for a small town like Archie to have. And the money to fix up the building is because people from all over the United States love the library so much that they send $5, $10, $15, whatever, to Archie, Missouri Library. And that's what we got the money to do it with. And so the love of the library is a national thing in the United States. People just absolutely love the library. They might disagree with some of the things we do. They might disagree with some of the things we have in the library. But in the end, they love the library. It's been a real pleasure to be able to serve the library. And as I said earlier, it's been a real stressful thing too at times. That you want to do your best for everybody. You want to have sympathy for everybody. You want to have empathy for everybody and everybody's opinion. But you just get to the point where you have to make the decision. And that's basically what we ended up doing, was just making the decision. And you have to do that. That's part of the being on this board, is to make the decision, to make a tough decision. If somebody's going to complain about something, you try to keep the complaints as low as possible, of course, but eventually you have to make the decision that this is what we do. This is what we want to serve. And I worked with some great people over the years, some people that probably aren't even living now. They were pretty old when I got on the board. But the librarians, as I said earlier too, we disagreed on moving the boat and things like that. But as soon as that died down, this group here, this group of the people we have right here, have gotten along very well. We've made decisions, we've debated decisions, strongly debated decisions sometimes. And in the end, we made a compromise and we voted. And it was unanimous by the time we voted. We made those kind of compromises. And that's what we need. I hope that goes on in the future, that get together, you can make the decisions, you can compromise, and you can make the decisions. And that's what has to happen. And a compromise is normally a better decision than a dictator's decision. And so you say, well, I got half of what I wanted, that's fine, but at least I got enough of what I wanted that I was willing to vote for it. So it's been interesting, and I'm gonna miss it. And I know my boss will miss it, because my bosses have been very good about anytime I ask, I say, got a library, got a little library, you got the time, go. And you can take a short lunch tomorrow, go. And they've always been very good about that. And I want to thank the people at Cardmart. I don't have advertising. I want to thank the managers I've had at Cardmart over the last 10 years that they never questioned it. They never questioned it at all. That I need to leave, I need to go to a library meeting. They always let me go. And so it's been good. It's been good. Thank you very much.
Well, I didn't put together anything like Becky did, Jessica. I'm so sorry. I don't know if you can see or not, but we have the certificate for you. You served almost 2 years, about 21 months, I want to say exactly. I just want to thank you for your willingness to serve. I want to thank you for your passion and just you are willing to listen, but you're also compromising in what you believe to be true. So I just want to thank you as well for your time that you took out of your schedule to serve on this board, and for the things that we've done as a result of you being on this board. Thank you.
I'm not gonna get your big long speech because I want to eat fried fish at some point tonight.
Well, thank you. All right. I would say at this point, if we have nothing else, I would entertain a motion to go to executive session for all those things listed.
I make a motion, we recess to executive session for legal, real estate bids and personnel. Statute 610.021.12, 12 and 13.
I will second that motion. Jessica,
I second it.
I'm gonna take a roll call vote now. Jessica,
Yes.
Roger.
Yeah.